Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Joe Pop Podcast. And I got Aaron Jackson here with me, who's laughing because I told him we're about to go mobile. So, once again, mobile, Joe Pop Mobile Podcast. And we are featuring Aaron Jackson once again, who is JAG. Nobody likes lawyers, but this one's pretty freaking cool. And he just wrote a book, so we'll be covering that. Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm excited too, brother. Thanks for having me, man.
You got a book, dude.
I know. It's pretty cool.
What's that feel like? But we'll get into that. So, go time. So, here we go.
We're off.
Dun, dun, dun. No speeding tickets. And it's rush hour. So hopefully 285 isn't too bad. So, okay. We met each other at, is it cohort 63?
Cohort 60, was it 63? 65?
I don't know.
One of the 60s, mid-60s, cohort mid-60s.
Yeah, with the Honor Foundation. So all you soft bubbas out there and soft enablers, we would highly recommend you go through the Honor Foundation.
Do the Honor Foundation.
Separating, yeah.
That's right.
Good transitional stuff. So we met there, and it's been pretty cool. I've been tracking you on LinkedIn. And we had a lot of good stuff in common, and this is really the first time we've been able to really sit down and get into some deep conversation. So I'm excited.
I'm excited too, man. Thanks.
Yeah. So let's start at the beginning. Obviously, you've had 20 years in the military, but there was a life before the military. I read your bio, dude. I did your homework.
Oh, yeah.
So you're one of those academy guys.
I was.
Won't hold that against you. But,
not wearing my ring. I'm not wearing
you're
my
not,
ring.
Dude, you're not.
I'm not a ring guy.
Okay. Is it as big as the West Point ring?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But, I will tell you this. Everybody always said, ring knockers. It's like a myth. It doesn't actually exist. I never saw it play out. I never even heard, actual stories of people who leveraged the ring knocking to actually get anything. I think somewhere that got kind of built up, but if it used to exist, it certainly does not anymore. So we get a bad rep for it, man.
Dude, it's a visual thing.
It's true.
On.
I don't know.
I had a buddy, and someday I'll get him on here. He's a fellow Christian guy, fellow RPA guy. When I say RPA, remotely piloted aircraft. Sorry about the acronyms, people. But he was a helo pilot out of West Point, and he had this giant, it looked like a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
Oh, and we harassed the snot out of him. Obviously, because we were Air Force at that point. But anyway.
I would say, if anything, the ring was a detractor of people. It would turn people off, so I rarely put the ring on.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, well, before the academy, there was life before that. So where were you born at?
Man, born and raised Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas.
Really?
Yeah.
That's where the Staps are from. Well,
no kidding.
Fort Worth area.
That was me. Fort
Okay.
Worth.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started dating my high school sweetheart. We eventually got married.
Nice.
So that is my wife of 21 years now.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so our old stomping grounds were Fort Worth.
All right.
In fact, I was there last weekend. And
hopefully that wasn't something bad.
No, it was great.
You said you were hanging out with Mom, and I'm like, uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, no. We were just visiting. Visiting.
No, awesome.
Yep. My son's going to be a cadet at Texas A&M. He's going to the Corps.
Really?
Yeah. So he's...
I hear that's pretty brutal.
It's, in the best way. In the best way of being brutal. Yeah.
Nice.
No, so he's doing that, and so
Admiral
we were down.
McCraven is out of there, isn't he?
Was he? I think he's at, this might be offensive, I think he is at UT now. I think he supports Longhorn Nation, not Aggie Nation.
Okay.
Close, but very, very far away from each other in terms of ideals and traditions.
All right, gotcha.
But you're close.
So before you met your wife, your parents. Tell me about your parents. What was their deal?
My parents love me very much. I got a brother, and they're great parents. They were not great together, though. So unfortunately, they split when I was pretty young.
I'm sorry.
In fact, no, it's okay. I have only a couple of memories of my folks together.
Okay.
And it's really just kind of flash bulb like toddler, practically in diapers running around, but I have this just, kind of strange flashbulb memory of them together.
Right.
Other than that, God love them. They're great people, but they are like oil and water. They just do not mix. And
Gotcha.
so it was kind of that growing up for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So they ended up splitting up.
Yeah.
You said you got a brother, older or younger?
Older brother.
Okay.
Older
By how
brother.
much?
3.5 years older.
Okay.
Yeah. So I, right as I was going into, say, junior high, he was just going into high school. So we always had that gap where we really were never in the same school at the same time. So, yeah, he's a great guy. We are still close, get along really well.
Nice.
He's my go-to. He's a physician's assistant by trade, and so we swap. He comes to me for legal advice. I come to him for medical advice, even though I don't advise him legally. I think it's important to say that for my bar. Don't provide him legal advice, but I can kind of show him where to go.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, 70s, 80s? When were you born?
Early 80s. 81.
Early 80s. Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah. This last May I turned 43.
Congrats.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bro. Yeah.
I'm hitting 54 this year.
Are you really? Man,
I am.
looking good for 54.
Oh my God, no, I appreciate it, but man, it takes work to look this good.
I know, it's true. It's true, but you do it well.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. So, so life in a single house, or raised by your mom?
Yeah,
raised by
I
your
grew
dad?
up. Yeah, kind of a single mom. Like I said, my dad was a great guy, but it was kind of an every other weekend sort of time with him. He always showed up to the sporting events and to the big things, so he was always played an active role in my life, but it was kind of from a distance too, know. So I'm most of my memories were growing up with a single mom. And, she was is a hard worker, she's a scrapper, she didn't have the education.
Right.
And so when she kind of went off and they separated and got divorced, and she was kind of on her own, and so it was kind of like fighting to get a place at the table, in the workspace, and but she was really outgoing, a really, really positive, kind of gregarious, person. She's the kind of person that when you walk in the room, and if I was ever as a kid at a party or at an event and I needed mom and I didn't know where mom was, all I had to do was kind of just stop and listen, and within 5 seconds or so I'd hear her laughing or talking. She was just that kind of like big personality, and so it did her well in the workforce, and so she ended up doing okay. So we were okay.
So you hit high school.
Yeah.
Big into sports, academic. What?
Yeah,
obviously academic because you went to the academy.
I was smart enough. I certainly wasn't the valedictorian of my class, but I was in the right classes and stuff like that, and did pretty okay. I'll tell you, the academy was almost like, I'd say some people would say fluke. I'd say godsend.
Okay.
I was, and you'll get a kick out of this actually, I was a gymnast in Texas, so Friday Night Lights, Dallas, Fort Worth area, and I was a male gymnast.
Well, hold on. No, and I'm only saying this because one of my boys was in that.
That's right.
Yeah, and so,
that's right.
And so when I would sell this pitch to, my son, he does a bit of, tumbling and gymnastics.
Yeah.
Dude, you're a cheerleader. Come on.
Yeah. I got a lot of that. Yeah, no.
Those dudes are freaking strong.
Well, I tell you what, so I mean, I'm sure this camera doesn't demonstrate it well, but let's say I'm not rocking 6 feet tall. I'm probably about halfway. I'm like 5'6.5" on a good day. Sort of thing. But it was one of those things that as I was growing up, my brother did it first.
Okay.
And we were both big soccer players. I was a really good soccer player, and he started doing gymnastics on the side. And I'm looking up to my older brother. He's my older brother, and I started noticing that he was getting ripped, like he was getting really, really strong, and so I kind of went in and took a look at what he was doing. I was like, yeah, it looked pretty fun, you know. But what I was really noticing was the girls in the room, you know, were also like, dude, like you're getting ripped. You're getting to like be around all of these, you know, good-looking girls, like, you know, same age, a little older. It was like, this seems pretty okay. So I tried it out, and I'll tell you, I was never as good as my brother. My brother was like the natural talent.
Okay.
You know, he was a dude that could just like, I wonder how you do that. And then the next thing you know, he's doing it, you know, better, you know, than anyone else, as if he's been doing it forever.
Wow.
I was not that way, but I was the hard worker.
Right.
You know, I was that dude that would just grit it out, sweat it out, grind it out, how long it took, and I would figure it out. And so we started late. I started late. We did not go to the premier like clubs and stuff like that.
Right.
But long story short, I stuck it out. I grinded it out. I was kind of like the kid from the other side of the tracks coming in and doing the sport. But I ended up being pretty good. So
well, and for your edification, and for those people that are out there, Alec, yeah, I think he's 24 now, 25. He would do cheer in the off season from wrestling.
yeah,
And he'd tell me, he's like, Dad, yeah, this is more brutal than wrestling.
yeah,
And I'm like, really?
yeah,
And I'd watch him out there because they'd run and they'd be holding the ground. At the time he's like 12,
yeah,
13.
yeah.
And yeah, boy, that's pretty legit.
Yeah,
You know?
and I never did cheerleading, but the workouts, like the closest that I've come to a collegiate workout, collegiate gymnastics workout, is with the soft guys. Like very similar.
Yeah.
In fact, the guy that created CrossFit, if I'm not mistaken, the dude that created CrossFit was an ex-gymnast.
Yeah,
So
I think you're right.
it's that type of workout, and so that kind of CrossFit, like, you know, workout. Like on a Friday, I was a gymnast at the academy too. On a Friday, at the end of the workout, we'd work out for 4 hours, and then we'd do this crazy circuit, and it was like the Friday circuit. And if you weren't hugging the trash can by the end of that thing, you didn't do it right. And I loved it. I loved that stuff.
So you actually did do.
I did, yeah.
Gymnastics.
So
not
yeah.
just flipping. Did you
no, I did
the rings and all that crap?
all 6 events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I apologize.
Yeah.
I
No, that's all right. See, it's an easily misunderstood sort of thing. Like, I will tell you, when I tell people that I was a gymnast, I get typically one of 3 questions back, right? And so if you're out there and you're listening to this and you find out that there's a dude that's a gymnast, you're probably going to want to say these things. Just don't do it. Don't ask any of these. Or it's questions or comments. So the first one, my favorite one, is always, oh, that's cool. You're a gymnast. That's awesome. My daughter was a gymnast. My sister was a gymnast. Some sort of reference to a woman in your life that did gymnastics, right? And so it's like, oh, that's great that your niece was a gymnast. That's awesome. I'm sure she loved it. It was great. So that was one. Number 2 is, were you in the Olympics? And I was not. I will tell you, I was good enough that I could have, with a straight face, tried out. Having just graduated from the academy, I would have tried out, and they would have said, "Oh, Jackson's trying out," and I probably wouldn't have made the team. But nobody would have questioned me trying out, and that's like one of my biggest regrets in life. So no, I wasn't in the Olympics. And then the third question is always, "Oh, that's cool. Can you do an iron cross?" That's like the one thing that everybody knows that guys do. Is the iron cross. Of course, yeah, absolutely. I could do an iron cross by the time I was in junior high.
You got pictures?
Oh, you know what I do?
I believe you.
I do have pictures.
Do you really?
I do have pictures.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm going to try to convince him to let me post that picture of him doing an iron cross.
Fair enough.
No, that's pretty cool.
Fair enough, yeah.
All right, so at some point, you're getting picked up by the academy, and it's for gymnastics. But now there's the big thing of the battle within that says, hey, am I going to go... everybody wants to be, especially Air Force, oh, I want to be a fighter pilot, or I want to be this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
What did you go in? What were your initial ambitions? Was it to become a JAG, or what were you going to do?
So, it was really funny. The godsend part of the earlier story was I had never heard of the Air Force Academy. I had no idea what it was. And
Okay.
so one day I was working out, and my coach, because I actually did it through the high school. The high school actually did it. I ended up stopping doing, club sports and just did high school.
Okay.
Because my coach was a really well-known coach and judge in the Olympic circles. In fact, in the '96 Atlanta Olympics, he ran it. He was asked to run
Oh, wow.
the men's gymnastics program for the Olympics when we hosted it back in Atlanta.
That's pretty freaking legit.
Yeah, the dude was known worldwide. He was one of the best judges on the pommel horse in the world.
All right.
So he'd go to all the international competitions and he'd be like the head judge and stuff like that. The dude knew what he was doing. So he just happened to be a high school health coach or a health teacher and the men's gymnastics coach at this high school. And so we just kind of stopped doing club stuff. It was really expensive and I was kind of burning out of that. And I did nothing but high school. And by the end of it, my high school career was really great. I ended up, kind of like I said, gutting it out, working hard. Ended up breaking 42 high school records, was
wow.
the state champion and on the all-around and broke a bunch of records at the state level. And
Dude,
it
now
was
I'm
the
feeling like a
national champion.
schmuck, man.
No. I ended up being the national high school champion.
Damn.
And broke the record there. And then the great state of Texas, our team was the team champions as well. So
Okay.
I ended up getting recruited kind of because of that stuff. And it was really down to the University of Oklahoma, which has a great gym program, and the Air Force Academy. And when
Okay.
my coach came up to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in going to the Air Force Academy? They want to recruit you." And I still remember it. My first response was, "Oh, that's cool. What's that? What's the Air Force Academy?" I had no idea. Went on a recruiting trip and fell in love with it. Man.
Wow.
There was no question that that's what I wanted to do. Did a recruiting trip to Oklahoma and loved Oklahoma. Ended up going to law school there years later.
Okay.
But where I was going to go for undergrad, there was no question. I wanted to go to the academy.
Nice.
So, so that's the godsend of how I got there.
Okay.
But I didn't go there necessarily wanting to be a pilot. I wasn't that guy that grew up, staring at the skies and dreaming of the day that I'd be there. I was interested,
Right.
but I wasn't sold on it either. And so it took a lot of soul searching. Come to find out years later, I ended up not being pilot qualified. So it was good that I ended up going law.
Okay.
But yeah, I wasn't that guy that went there to fly. I was going there for the leadership, for just the challenge that was presented there, and just this idea of being like serving something bigger than yourself, serving your nation, kind of love of country, and just the challenge of it all was really, really appealing to me. So I went there and loved it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you already knew you wanted to be a lawyer then? Is what you told me,
I
for the
kind of
most part.
got there and I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go. It's kind
Okay.
of funny, like they have this thing called Majors Night where you don't go there and immediately declare what major you want. You kind of spend your first year in core classes, and then right kind of as you're transitioning into year two, at least when I was there, they would have a Majors Night, and it was all of the 4 degrees of the freshmen would go to Fairchild Hall, which was the big academic building, and all of the different majors would put up tables of this is our major, this is what you can do here. And so I went all around and I narrowed it down to 3.
Okay.
I wanted to either do poli-sci, political science, behavioral sciences, or legal studies. And so I went to the poli-sci table and said, hey, this is kind of who I am and what I'm interested in. And the guy was just a complete tool. It was terrible. Like, it was the worst person you would want to put like behind a table convincing people to go be like devote yourself to political science.
Right.
Like, it's not a good fit. So I was like, yeah, I'm not interested in that kind of guy. I'm not interested in that kind of like environment, right? So I kind of scratched that off the list. Went to behavioral sciences, really liked that. You could do some cool things, and I was really interested in human behavior and kind of that stuff. So
Right.
that was on the table. And then I went to legal studies, and I told him, hey, I'm really thinking about one day going to law school. And the guy said, oh, well, if you're interested in going to law school, don't do the legal studies major. And I said, well, what are you talking about, right? Like, I want to go to law school. And he said, no. If you know you're going to do law school, if that's really something you want to do, you're going to learn this stuff in law school, right? And you're going to learn it better than we're going to teach you here, right? So you might as well expand your knowledge, like become proficient in something else, because it doesn't really matter if you're pre-law going into law school. They don't really care about that.
Okay.
So just go become really good at something else, and then when you get to law school, you can expand your knowledge into a different area. So it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to do legal studies, and was behavioral sciences after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I would have thought, hey,
I know, right?
hit
Like
pre-law,
of course you do pre-law.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you end up, what year did you graduate the academy?
I was 2003.
Wow.
Yeah. Feels like yesterday.
Dang, I was already in the military like 13 years at that point.
It's funny. I'm thinking how long ago that was, and you're like, oh, you're just a youngin'.
All right, so you graduate the academy.
Yep.
What's your first duty station? Or did they immediately say, hey, we're going to send you to law school? How did that unfold?
No, so I knew at that point that I was interested in law school. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do still, to be honest with you. I was still kind of on the fence with a lot of cool options. The cool thing is I had a chance to stay at the academy and coach and teach in their athletic department. This again is kind of like the one big regret that I had, because I had been asked if I would be interested in doing what's called the World Class Athlete Program. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but they'll actually put athletes that are officers in the military, and I think they allow it for enlisted members as well now. Like if you're like a really competitive athlete, and could represent kind of the armed services, the armed forces well, you could become a member of this world class athlete program where all you do is train and compete. In my case, they threw it out for me to stay on, train, and try out for the Olympics, and because Greece was the following year.
Yeah.
And I said no. I turned it down.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I look back and I'm like, dude, what are you thinking? Like, you would have been nothing but an athlete. I married my high school sweetheart 3 days after I graduated. So it's like you would have been a newlywed, and your job would have been to train for the Olympics. And I turned it down. I was like, dude, I don't know what I was thinking. I think the reality for me back then was I knew that I was good, but I also, had a really good feeling that I was not going to be picked up. Like, I was the straight-faced look, but compared to the guys that I was competing against, they were just better than I was. Like, I was good enough to have a seat at the table,
right?
But I was not going to be, king for a day.
Okay.
And so I kind of knew, like, it wasn't going to end up with me being in the Olympics, and my body was shot. After 4 years of being a competitive collegiate athlete, my shoulders were shot, my shins were shot. Exactly.
I mean, so you're talking, because if you did it all through high school, you're talking already an 8-year career.
Yeah.
I
mean, it was, so my body was kind of done. Looking back, I think, man, take a couple months off, heal up, you're in the best shape of your life, and roll with it, man. But I don't know. I just wasn't thinking that way. Anyway, so I ended up going into the contracting career field, because at that point in time I decided, I know. No, I actually really liked it. I really liked it.
It's still icky, whether you liked it or not.
Yeah.
Is that cat? Oh God.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay,
that's true.
Okay, go ahead.
I knew I was really interested in going to law school, and so when I had asked around, this is post 9/11. I was at the academy. I was a 2 degree, a junior at the academy.
Tell me about that. Real quick, let's backtrack a little bit.
Yeah, break.
So 9/11. What are we looking at? So you're in the academy when 9/11 goes down.
Yeah. In fact, I will never forget my 9/11 story. This was the one the one semester I was at the academy where we did not have a morning meal formation. So every other semester, you started your morning off at 6:15. You were outside in formation, waiting to start the day off, and you would march into Mitchell Hall to get your morning chow before going off to classes. And one semester, they decided, you know what? Let's try giving the cadets a break, a little bit more of a later start to the morning, and we'll see if that kind of is a good thing, right? Give them a little bit more sleep, a little bit more time to kind of, instead of throwing them straight out onto the drill pad, first thing in the morning. And so here it is. It only lasted, by the way, for a semester, because 9/11 happened, and they got super patriotic again, and then by golly, you had to be out there at 6:15 in the morning. Anyway, but so I was in my room, and my roommate, one of my best friends to this day, did not have a first period class, but I did. In fact, I had a 2-period class, and that morning was a 2-hour-long statistics exam. It was a stats exam. Yeah, we called them graded reviews. So we had a statistics GR, 2 hours, first thing in the morning, and so I'm gearing up for that, and I am. What I would do, because my roommate was sleeping, I would turn my computer on. And I still had, I'm old enough that my computer was one of those big old monstrosities, right? Yeah. It took 2 trips to take it across to different rooms and stuff. But I would turn on the computer, turn the sound all the way down, and we had a little TV card that had 4 channels. And so I would turn it on, normally Good Morning America was on, and I would just get a little bit of news on silent, closed captions, would be on. While I was kind of getting dressed quietly, getting ready. And so that morning, I'm getting ready, and by the time I turned the computer on, one of the towers was already on fire. Okay. And they were trying to figure out what had happened. And so the captions that I'm reading, are kind of suggesting maybe a Cessna or a small plane.
Yeah, because that had happened in the past. I remember that stuff
so it's
before.
What's happening here? And so because it was a really interesting thing, I turned on the sound just a little bit, just enough that I could just barely hear it, but the sound couldn't make it to my buddy on the other side of the room. And I will never forget, I was in BDUs that morning. It's a battle dress uniform, camouflage, for those of you that didn't wear BDUs ever.
Old school.
Yeah, the black boots, right? And so I am leaning down, lacing up my boot, when I hear out of the computer just the words, "Oh my God." And it was just enough that I looked up and saw the second one kind of blowing up. In fact, I've gone back, because you can YouTube, Good Morning America, 9/11.
Yeah.
And my memory's pretty solidly intact. That's kind of how it went. So after the second one happened, and it was very clear that it was not a Cessna, this is not a mistake, I immediately woke up my roommate and said, "Hey, buddy, I think you need to get up. Something's happening." And then in true fashion, of course, I had to report to the exam. And it's the Air Force Academy, so I don't care if the Twin Towers are on fire. By golly, we're going to take this exam, right? So the professor said, "I know you guys know what's going on. We don't have any information, but we're going to do this exam. So I'll let you know if anything happens. Just, okay, ready, begin." And so we get about halfway through this dadgum exam, and the professor knocks on the door, peeks her head in, and says, "Hey, I just wanted you all to know that the Pentagon has just been hit. Okay, keep going."
Are you serious?
Keep going. Yes. Oh. So we had to finish this exam knowing that at this point in time that we were under attack. And so we ended up going for 2 more classes. And by the 3rd period class, or I guess it was the 4th period class, all we did was just watch the TV. And I ended up coming back to my squadron, and everything was crowded, bustling. People were running around, making phone calls, doing all this stuff. And the air officer commanding, the officer in charge of my squadron, was kind of doing like this, looking around. And he looks and he was like, "Jackson, there you are. I've been looking for you." I said, "What do you need, sir?" He said, "I need you to stand post. We think that we might be attacked, and so we are putting up a perimeter, a defensive perimeter around the academy, and you have been tapped to stand post at this particular entry control point. And I was like, dude, I'm pumped. Like, I was like, adrenaline going.
They're coming
I'm
to
like,
the gates.
It's time to, it's go time. You know, like I'm ready to like bust some heads, right? And I just said, Roger that, sir. Where's the armory? He was like, no time to go to the armory. We need you there. I said, all right, we don't even get a weapon. Like, what happens if we get breached?
Right.
And they were like, just figure it out. We got to get you to the post. And I said, well, okay, what about comms? Can I get a radio? No radios, just go. So it was like, okay, fine. I'm like literally just gonna sit. So I did. I stood post at this entry control point for the rest of the day.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was kind of my 9/11 story.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy time.
Yeah, it was.
Can
I had gotten out of the military. I had
No
like
kidding.
a 2-year break, and and I looked at my wife. We had watched the towers go down, and a guy, I didn't even know this cat. He was tending the neighbor's lawn, and I had spoke to him briefly, found out, hey, he was Air Force out of Hurlburt.
Yeah.
And it'd be cool to track this cat down. But the minute that we saw that it was the second tower had been hit, man, I went outside and said, hey, dude, you need to get in here. I think we're at freaking war.
Yeah.
And the dude sat there we sat on the coffee table, like, 6 feet from the TV, just glued to it. And he's like, he had a beeper, so he's like, dude, I gotta go, man. He said, yeah, hey, thanks for letting me sit in here. And he took off. I don't know what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I told Mary, I said, yeah, hey, it's time to go back in.
Yeah.
And I mean, by that December, I was at the 2-3 as a Mandate bomb.
No kidding.
Yeah, that was my first introduction
What?
to special tactics.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, man.
But anyway, this is your story, not mine.
No, I know.
So, all right, so fast forward, you graduate the academy.
Mm-hmm.
3 days afterwards, you're getting married.
Yeah.
How did that relationship go with you being her in Texas, you in Colorado? That's a long distance relationship.
Yeah. No,
Probably a good thing.
No,
you
assume too much. So it ended up that I went to the academy, and my wife, who is a beautiful and brilliant woman, got a full ride scholarship to go to a small school in Missouri.
Okay.
And so I go Colorado, she goes Missouri, and 1 year was enough for her. And she said, I think I want to move to Colorado Springs. Her parents actually said okay to this. Like, we're going to let you give up a full ride scholarship to this college and pack up and move just outside of the perimeter of your boyfriend's school. But they did. Like, we had been together for a really long time.
Right.
At that point in time, we knew. Like, I already knew I wanted to marry this woman. It was just a matter of time. So I will say, though, that was probably a bad decision. I wish my girlfriend at the time would have stayed, finished up at least 2 years, and then come.
Right.
Because I'm still just a sophomore. I'm a 3 degree at the Air Force Academy. We don't get to leave very often.
Yeah.
And so she found herself, 20 minutes away from her boyfriend, but we could never hang out.
Wow.
Right? And so it ended up being kind of I moved all the way out here for you, and now I can't see you. So yeah, that was kind of a rough year, but we made it through. It was funny.
And so now 21 years.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Yeah. So I proposed November 10th, 2001. And we got married on May 31st of 2003.
Nice.
Yeah.
And 21 years later.
Unbelievable.
So cool.
God is good, man.
Yeah. So, all right. So you hang out at the academy as a sports advisor.
Yeah, coach.
Coach. So once that ride is done, how long was that for?
It was really just for the year, and we kind of, like, I had like kind of a bumpy road trying to figure out where I wanted to go, and so we ended up landing in Altus, Oklahoma, as a contracting officer or contracts manager, right? Because I didn't even have a warrant, right? And then I showed up to the contracting squadron knowing I wanted to go to law school. The thing was, the academy at the time, you couldn't go straight to law school.
Okay.
You had to spend 2 years at a base before you would be eligible. And so because I was only at the academy for a year, I ended up having to spend 3 years on active duty because I needed the 2 years on base.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
But I walked into the squadron and essentially said, hey ma'am, I'm Second Lieutenant Jackson reporting in. And, in that same conversation, it kind of went like, I just want you to know that my real goal is to go to law school and become a JAG. And so I need 2 years on station. So within 2 years, I'm good, just to let you know, kind of open, full transparency here.
Right.
I'm not looking to stay in the career field. I'm going to try to become a JAG. I'm going to put in my application, but I'm going to work my butt off and I'm going to earn your recommendation. And I'm going to give it all that I got, and of course there's no guarantees I'm going to pick it up, but yeah, that's how I played it. I was like, I'm just going to tell you right now that I'm not looking to do this long term, and I'm going to ask for your recommendation, in a year and a half or so, but I'm going to earn every like drop of ink of your recommendation. And I did. And so praise God, I got picked up first time I applied, and found myself at the University of Oklahoma as a law student.
So you told me how your side of the conversation went. How did her side of the conversation go?
It was, for lack of a better word, pardon the expression, but it was pretty ballsy, right? It was kind of a cheeky move. And she kind of gave me this is kind of a weird start, sort of thing. But I think I was authentic enough that she could see that, hey, I really meant business. I really was going to be a really hard worker for her.
Right.
And I think she could also see, like, hey, I can kind of leverage this in a way to make sure that he's doing what he just told me that he was going to be doing.
Well, that's a very big carrot.
Yeah.
Say, hey, remember.
Yeah. And she never had to use the carrot, but it ended up working out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, good deal.
Yeah. So I showed up to law school, and I will never forget this. The night before law classes began, the upperclassmen, they call them 3Ls. And when you're a 1L, that's your first year, second year, 2L.
So you're in with a bunch of military guys?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was kind of in a, they called it the civilian, what was it called? The Civilian Institution Programs or something like that.
Okay.
So it was a really interesting first year that I was in law school, because I belonged to the Air Force, but they put me basically in an excess leave status, so that when any day I was at law school, I was kind of considered like on leave in a way. I was in an unpaid leave position to go to law school. So it was a huge gamble for me. There's kind of a story behind that as well. But I was in the excess leave program for a year, where the only time I was making money was when I was actively serving in a legal office for the Air Force. So spring break, long weekends, holiday break, all the law students are going off to go, party and hang out with family and stuff. And I'm like Monday morning reporting in for work. But we needed the income, because at this point in time, our youngest, or our oldest son now, was already born. So 2 months old, and I'm starting law school in an unpaid position.
Yeah.
Like devoted. And what we had been told was, you can't take any outside jobs, right? And so it's like, all right, well, I guess I'm going into debt, but we got to buy diapers, so it's like diapers and ramen. Let's figure out how to do this. They didn't
give you a stipend?
No.
Nothing? They give you a place to live?
No, it was all on me. It was a we're basically gonna give you the time to go. And so that's the kind of that's the agreement. Now, I reapplied for another funded position the year later and ended up getting picked up for that. So it was another praise God moment.
Okay.
Like, we could afford, diapers for another 2 years, and we ended up being, kind of financially okay. We had racked up some debt kind of year one, but we were really cost conscious, and so we didn't end up putting ourselves in too bad of a situation.
Gotcha. So,
but it was a gamble for sure.
So I take it, now did you know this going into it? Like those 2 years when you're working in contracting, are you socking money away because you know that this is the program you're rolling into?
That would have been really smart, right? Like, wouldn't that have been a great idea? No, I will tell you, my wife and I, we are pretty frugal anyway. So I wouldn't say we were strategically putting in reserves law school, but we were okay. Like we had some money already, so it ended up being just fine. We did take on a little bit of debt, but it wasn't, soul crushing,
right?
Amounts of debt to kind of get us there. Like when I was looking for a place to go to law school, like Dallas Fort Worth kid, right? So, and we've got a grandbaby now. There are grandparents at this point in time.
Yeah.
So we knew we wanted to be. Our kind of parameters were we needed to be kind of close to grandparents, right? So they could hang out.
Right.
And we needed to be close to an Air Force base so that when I needed to go in and do my time, right, I wasn't, away from the family or anything like that. I could do it kind of stationed where we were living, right?
Right.
And so I was looking for something close by, and it needed to be within a certain amount of money, right? The Air Force was would only kind of accept schools that were within a certain budget.
Gotcha.
And at the time, we weren't even allowed to consider scholarships and things like that as part of it. So I knew that I needed to be within a certain budget, close to a base, close to home, and go find out that that the school that kind of met all of the criteria, checked all the boxes, was the University of Oklahoma, where I'd been recruited to do undergrad. And I grew up a Boomer Sooner fan. My mom's whole family is from Oklahoma, and so
okay,
I grew up going to the Red River Shootout and sitting with Crimson Cream instead of rooting on the actual Texas University. So that was kind of me. So it ended up working out great.
Nice.
Yeah.
So law school, we're looking at 1 year, 2 years,
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, law school is 3 years.
Woo.
Yeah.
Now, but you got credit towards retirement and all that stuff.
That was kind of the good deal, right?
Okay. Good deal.
What we had was, I knew going into it that I was kind of on my own financially for the periods of times that I was in law school, but it counted as time in service.
Nice.
And we kept our medical benefits. And so between those two things, it was like, okay, we can, it's a give and take here, right? Like, I'm out of pocket. But that's time in service for me. So that was a solid deal for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good deal.
Yeah.
And so your son, so you've got, how many kiddos you got?
I got 4 kids now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's the first one.
Yeah.
Nice. And all right.
So this was the original story I was going to say. So going in the night before, I had a social that we were asked to go to as brand new students, right? The upperclassmen were throwing the social. And I found myself at the social talking to a professor who the next day I would find out was my contract law professor. I just thought she was a professor, so it ended up she was my professor.
Okay.
She didn't know that. I didn't know that at the time. But she knew that she would be teaching a certain group of the kids, the students that were there that night. We just didn't know it was the two of us.
Right.
Anyway, so I'm telling her I'm in the military, I'm married, I've got a 2-month-old kid at the house, I'm looking to be a JAG. And her response back to me the night before classes began was, "Oh, you're married? Oh, you've got a kid and a little baby at the house?" And she goes, yeah, just so that you know, you're not going to make it.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
said, really? I said, is that right, ma'am? She goes, I'm sure you'll get through law school. You know, you seem like a bright guy. You'll get through law. It's tough, but you'll get through law school. But you're not going to get through law school with a wife. You will get divorced. So you need to set yourself up for the fact that your relationship will not survive law school. And so I kind of, nodded my head and smiled and said, well, thank you for the advice, ma'am. I appreciate that. I think we'll be okay. We made it through the academy, and I think we'll be okay, though. And she just kind of gave me the, all right, think again, sort of thing. So I will never forget, fast forward 3 years, I'm at graduation. I've done great in law school. I've got a smoking hot wife next to me. Right. And I have not only one kid, but I now have 2 kids, one in each of my arms.
Oh,
and I'm
man.
in the graduation cap and gown, and I see her, and I walk past her, and all I could do was, I looked at my kids, I looked at my wife, and then I looked back at her, and I just said, ma'am. And she knew exactly what I was thinking. And she just smiled, and she goes, congratulations.
Awesome.
And walked by. So that was my law school experience.
Dude, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so 3 years of the grind, 2 kids into it,
Yeah.
and so now you're actually going to be a real boy, a real airman.
That's right. That's right.
What?
Yeah.
Where's your first duty station after that?
Offutt Air Force Base. Yeah.
And
So
Offutt is
Nebraska. Omaha,
okay.
Nebraska,
All
home of the College World Series, which I don't know if you paid any attention, but A&M. Since my son is going to A&M now, like, we're huge A&M fans, and they were in the College World Series. They made it to the final.
Wow. Okay.
They won the first of 3, but they lost the second 2. So
Gotcha.
they ended up runner-ups, but had a good run at it. So yeah, home of the College World Series, Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska.
So, what kind of law did you practice at Offutt?
So it's one of the things that's really cool about the JAG Corps is when you practice law, they throw you straight in, headfirst into the deep end.
Okay.
And so you go to kind of JAG school through the Air Force, and you get certified through the JAG Corps to practice, and you immediately become a federal prosecutor, and they'll make you in charge of something else that is going on. And so it just so happened that they saw that I was a prior contracting guy.
Right.
So I immediately became a federal prosecutor, and they made me chief of contract law, which is normally kind of a cheesy position, but at Offutt Air Force Base, that's the home of Strategic Command, the Air Force Weather Agency, the Defense Technical Institute. They call it a DTIC contract, and the 55th Wing. And so all in, it was like $6 to $7 billion worth of contracts.
Holy smokes.
And I ended up being the chief of that division. Now, of course, I'm not doing these contracts, but I'm the legal guy that's helping the contracting office with all of these really large dollar strategic command, classified sort of contracts. So it ended up being really cool. And then at the same time, I'm prosecuting cases. So,
okay. What's the worst case you had to prosecute out there?
Oh man, are you talking Offutt or just? I don't know if I want to answer the ever one. It's pretty gnarly.
Oh, yeah?
There've been some pretty bad cases.
Okay, so we'll just save the really good ones for as we come across that duty station. You can chime in and say, hey, yeah, at this duty station I tried this case or whatever. So
I would say, how about this? So I ended up being both a prosecutor and defense counsel.
Okay.
Back to back at Offutt, which is a really unusual thing, but it just so happened that it's kind of another like godsend sort of moment where an opportunity opened up. And in the Air Force, like whoever's kind of the best in the courtroom, the people that are really the seasoned like folks end up getting picked to be defense counsel.
Okay.
And so I was kind of the young guy in there.
How many times have you watched A Few Good Men?
Too many. Too many.
All right. I digress. I knew it had to be at least a couple of times.
Let's say the Colonel Jessup monologue kind of at the end as he's on the stand.
Yeah.
I could give it to you word for word. Yeah. I always joked, like, you know what, when it came to Tom Cruise movies, even though I love Top Gun, I was just more A Few Good Men than I was Top Gun, right? That was just kind of my thing. I would say my favorite, we'll do it this way, my favorite case that I did, it wasn't even a court-martial. It was an administrative discharge board where there was a young airman who ended up getting loaded. And just for everybody that hasn't been in the military, I will say 99.999% of the men and women that serve in our great armed forces are, fantastic.
Yeah.
But you do run across the occasional, kind of goober that makes some mistakes or has some character flaws, right? And so, unfortunately, I dealt with those folks. This was a mistake moment, and probably maybe a little bit of a character issue as well, but more of just a really bad night for this guy. This guy, young guy, goes to a local bar. I think he had just turned 21, so he's kind of like still in that I can consume alcohol, sort of phase.
Right.
And decides to test that way too hard one night. Ends up getting absolutely hammered. And again, decides that it's also a great idea because he was by himself and he's got to get home, right?
Yeah.
So he doesn't call, Airmen Against Drunk Driving. He doesn't call his buddies. He decides, I can do it on my own. Gets back into his monster truck. It was a beautiful, sweet, jacked up, like F-250 with all of the bells and whistles, monster truck. And decides to take the back roads outside of Offutt Air Force Base, going about 60 miles an hour. Just complete. By the time they caught him, I think he blew like a .247, I think was his BAC.
Wow.
So
man.
Just completely ripped.
Yeah.
Mistakes a driveway for a four-way stop sign and ends up plowing into the house of like an 80-year-old couple.
Oh my gosh.
And the truck stops about a foot from the couch where this guy was sleeping.
Holy cow.
So, by the sheer grace of God,
yeah,
this guy was alive, the next day to tell the story. And that sweet couple, they were as nice as could be. Despite the fact that they were out of their house in the middle of Omaha, Nebraska winter, which is brutal.
Yeah.
It gets down to the zeros, right? And it's snowing and stuff. They're out of their house in the middle of winter, and they just, didn't want to see anything bad happen to this guy. But unfortunately, he almost killed somebody.
Yeah.
Destroyed a house. Unfortunately, also made the news, and so they had it was splashed on the nightly news that night. Airmen, almost kills somebody in this vehicle. So at the end of the day, he found himself into an administrative discharge board in the courtroom doing the full thing, and they ended up asking him to leave the Air Force. So he didn't make it. He didn't make it as an airman through that experience. But
right.
It was a fascinating kind of case to work, and so that was a memorable one.
Thank God he didn't kill anybody.
Oh, I know.
And a moment's indiscretion. But
yeah, really unfortunate.
Follow you a lifetime. Yeah.
Yep.
So Offutt, where's your next duty station at?
So I was defense counsel there, and then after being defense counsel, at that point in time, I'm kind of a late term captain, and they ended up having the faith in me to kind of move me early. So I was kind of early to get into the defense counsel shop, and then I was early to get into a deputy spot, and they ended up making me the deputy staff judge advocate. So for those that don't kind of know the military law stuff, staff judge advocate is like the head lawyer for a base or an organization, and they have staff underneath them. They're kind of like if a base is like a small town, they're like the city attorney, right? And then they have staff underneath them. So or think of it like general counsel of, a decent-sized organization.
Okay.
And so I was the deputy staff judge advocate for my next assignment, which was kind of like the number 2 in the legal office.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and we had about, 25 people in the office, so it ended up being a decent-sized legal office for a young dude to kind of serve as the number 2, kind of like an ops officer kind of position. Yeah.
All right. And where was that at?
That was beautiful Maxwell Air Force Base.
Oh, gosh.
In Montgomery, Alabama.
Yeah, I don't want to throw any shade, but I mean, I've been there a couple of times. I'm not impressed. I mean,
well, if you think about my assignments,
base.
if you think about my assignments, I was Altus, Oklahoma, which I always described as it is an Air Force base tucked between 3 cotton farms and a peanut farm in southwest Oklahoma, right? And then I went to Omaha, Nebraska, which I will tell you is one of my favorite places. Like, it is a hidden gem in the Air Force. Omaha is a great town. So, it's kind of known as the flyover country, right? But Omaha, as a city and Offutt Air Force Base, wonderful assignment.
Okay.
But not regarded as one of those, like, really coveted, places to go. And then I go to Alabama. But I tell you, we love Montgomery. I'm definitely one of those, like, kind of optimistic dudes where it's like, there's no bad assignment.
Oh,
right?
yeah, it's what you make of it.
There are good people, and there are good organizations, and there are things to do. It doesn't matter where you find yourself. And so I loved every place that I was stationed at. I loved Montgomery. I loved Alabama. It was wonderful.
Good deal.
Yeah.
So Maxwell, you hit Maxwell. Where are you going next?
After that, a really cool opportunity came up. I was right around that kind of, I had pinned on major while I was in that assignment. And right around that time is when you're looking at kind of the next step of education, professional development. And there were 2 options. That you could go to Air Command and Staff College, which was Montgomery, Alabama. So it's like I could do another year in Montgomery, which I would have done.
Right.
But there was another opportunity to go back and get what's called an LLM, or Master of Laws degree.
Okay.
From George Washington University in Washington, D.C.
Nice.
There were a couple of different options that they offered, but I ended up putting in for a series of them, and I ended up getting my number 1 pick. So our next assignment was to go to Washington, D.C. for a year, to go back to school, get a Master's of Law degree in National Security and U.S. Foreign Relations Law. And then the follow-on assignment was already guaranteed to be as a professor at the Air Force Academy. So I was going to get a year of DC education, and then I was going to go be a college professor.
I'm being a smartass here. You did get paid.
Yeah.
To go to Georgia.
Yeah.
I
It
would
was
hope
amazing.
so.
It was amazing. Yeah. No, it was fantastic. Yeah. So it was a fully funded scholarship, fellowship, I guess you would say, to go get an advanced law degree.
Sweet.
And then go back and teach law at my alma mater.
So you actually did take the assignment at the academy to teach.
I did. Yeah.
How long was that?
That was a 3-year gig.
Okay.
And loved every second of it. It really was, like, as I think about, I mean, it's so important, all of us. You are never too late to really figure out who you are and where your passions lie, right?
No, you're right.
The Honor Foundation kind of exposed that for a lot of us, right?
Yeah, it did.
It served as kind of a reminder for me that at the end of the day, like, I've got a website now, and you can even see it on my website. Like, at the end of the day, I am a coach, a teacher, a motivator. I'm all about building up people, right, to be the best that they can possibly be. That is my heart. I love the law, don't get me wrong. I love the law. But I love, like, teaching and encouraging and motivating people.
Yeah.
And so going back to I knew that kind of going into it. I had an opportunity to be a basic training cadre back in the day when I was at the academy.
Right. And
so I kind of already knew that I had this in me, right? That I just loved encouraging and building people up. And so this was my chance to kind of do that on the academic side. And it was a passion finder for me. I am still an adjunct professor. I actually teach at Texas A&M's law school as an adjunct professor to this day. I've done it for years.
Wow.
And it was just because, like, the academy as a professor confirmed for me what I kind of already knew, but I just needed the confirmation.
Right.
That, man, my heart is teaching, educating, motivating, encouraging people.
That's cool.
And so, yeah, I get to do that at Texas A&M now, just as a fun side position.
Right.
Yeah.
Dude, outstanding.
Yeah.
All right, so you finish up at the academy. Where are you off to?
I deployed.
Okay.
So I did we kind of skipped the first deployment. I deployed again, this time to, it was an undisclosed location in the Middle East, and it was the largest air expeditionary wing that we had in the Middle East, and we were running air operations against the Islamic State. So this was the time when, I'm sure you remember, like back in 2013, 14, the Islamic State kind of rises up, and we're right kind of in the thick of the Islamic State literally holding vast swaths of territory in Iraq and Syria and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they've established their caliphate in Raqqa, Syria. And so the irony was, when I was at George Washington writing my thesis ended up being the legal argument for the United States to go into the territory of a non-consenting nation state and take care of business. Right. And I was really thinking Syria, right? Because Syria had not expressed their consent with us doing what we were doing inside their own territory. And so what gives the right for the United States of America to go into another nation uninvited and do what needed to be done for the sake of overcoming the Islamic State? So I wrote my thesis on this, made the legal argument, and then fast forward, less than 3 years later, I'm the head lawyer in theater, like doing this exact stuff. So it was a really cool kind of full circle moment for me.
Wow.
And loved every second of it.
I bet to see both
it was
sides
a grind.
of it.
Yeah, it was a wonderful, wonderful grind. And I will say, without getting ahead of where we'll probably go in this thing, that experience was the reason why I wrote this book.
Okay.
Ultimately, right?
Gotcha.
That was kind of the catalyst that kind of started the fire for what eventually became the book that I just recently published.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, doing RPAs, I did Preds and Reapers for about 4 or 5 years. It was a good break from me being a ground pounder, or being a field rat.
Yeah.
But yeah, got tired of being in the box all the time. The ground control station is what we call the box.
Yeah.
So I imagine you probably had, without divulging too much, I imagine you probably had a lot of influence as to, kinetic events, strikes, and things of that nature, right? With the
it was a fascinating time to be over there, because we were doing full-scale air operations,
right?
Kind of all over the place, different platforms, different mission sets. So, it was a cool time to be over there. Now, as a JAG, there's also another attorney that's in the KAOC that's also kind of helping advise specifically those missions. So it's kind of one of those multi-rolled positions where I'm handling everything in the deployed environment for this particular location, while also kind of navigating issues that might be created in the mission sets that are coming down as well.
Right.
Less on that side and more on the kind of the on-the-ground operational side.
Okay.
But doing a little bit of both. And like I said, man, what a cool time. So it just so happened that while we were there was when the Syrian Defense Forces declared victory over the Islamic State by recapturing Raqqa, which had been their declared capital, their headquarters of the caliphate.
Okay.
And so it was a huge victory for the Syrian Defense Forces to be able to declare that while we were over there. And a lot of that was thanks to the kind of daily operations that we were providing to the fight. So it was really cool.
Well, and it wasn't. I didn't realize how big of a hand JAG had in. And I mainly say this because of the guys that tend to scrutinize, a lot of our operations.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into taking bad guys off the battlefield, especially from
Without
the
a
air
doubt.
op side. Yeah, and,
Yep.
and that there's a lawyer that's posted that's kind of giving the green flag or throwing the red flag and saying, hey, no,
Yeah.
not legal, or yeah, legal, we can do this. Just to emphasize to the to people out there listening that guys like you help keep everything legal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of checks and balances to keep to help prevent from innocent people getting hurt.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a common misconception. It's unfortunate that we don't, as just a nation, right, as a citizenry, kind of understand all of the process that goes behind everything they do, starting in the planning phase all the way through execution, right? We tend to think that it's, kind of Wild West out there, but there is a lot of intentionality, a lot of thought. And the full due process of law plays out for each operation, and so it's not nearly as Wild West as folks want to think that it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you get done with that assignment, and then now you're pressing on. Where are you going?
Pentagon, yeah. After
Really?
the deployment, I got
Okay.
picked up to go be at the Pentagon, and so I had this really cool opportunity. I was in kind of two different divisions in the 2 years that I was there because a really cool opportunity came up to be the lead attorney for the startup of the United States Space Force. So
Really?
so I was the
I had
head
no
JAG.
idea.
Yeah, and I would say lead attorney, and like let's not forget, like I have a chain of command, right?
Yeah,
So I'm not like
yeah.
the attorney making all of the decisions, but I was the lead attorney on the ground in the planning task forces representing the Judge Advocate General's Corps for the Air Force as we were building up what was to become the United States Space Force. So it was incredible, another kind of godsend timing, sort of thing, that I was just at the right place at the right time to be able to do some pretty cool historic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's significant.
Yeah. I mean, when we started, it was almost like a joke, like, was this really going to happen?
I know.
But the planning, like, continued to, develop and deepen. And then the next thing we know, we find ourselves in, kind of the back and forth with the House Armed Services Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee and all of the behind the scenes, where we started to realize, like, oh my gosh, like,
This is real.
this might actually happen, like, and then sure enough, like, within a couple more months, we're unfurling the flag of the 6th branch of the armed forces.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
That is. That's nuts.
Wild.
All right. So from the Pentagon, where are you going?
So the Pentagon took me, I think I got a lot of really good operational experience between my deployment and the stuff that I did at the Pentagon. They felt it right to make me the staff judge advocate of the 24th Special Operations Wing. And so
That's legit.
Yeah, man. So that was the pinnacle for me. Like I kind of, as my career developed, I love litigating, and I mean there's so many different areas of law that I love, but at the end of the day, I wanted to focus my time in the Air Force, my legal career, really rooted in the fight as much as I could.
Right.
Which is why I wanted to do national security law and U.S. foreign relations. It's why I wanted to deploy, doing what I did, and so all of these kind of experiences kind of set me up to go be the head lawyer for the 2-4 SAO. And there a lot of folks don't know what the 2-4 SAO is, and I'm a little bit flippant with this, but to keep it like to where people understand, like, kind of the role of what the 2-4 SAO is, the way that I've kind of always explained it to folks on the outside who's just looking for the elevator of, like, what is it that you did. I basically say that I was lead counsel for the Air Force's version of the Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
And that seems to register with them. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's really cool, So obviously very different organizations, different branches, but the mission set is generally the same.
Oh, yeah.
And the group of people, the environment, the special operations environment, could not have asked for a cooler gig. And that was my final assignment in the Air Force. Because I kind of figured, it doesn't get cooler than this, man. It doesn't get better than this. I'm with the coolest organization in the Air Force, the coolest people that I will ever be blessed to work with in the military are our special operators. It doesn't get any cooler than this, man. And it was right about the time that I was hitting 20 years. And so we kind of had that, we had that heart-to-heart family discussion that every service member needs to have with their family right at the right time to say, hey, are we in it past 20, or are we going to call 20, you know, when we become retirement eligible?
Right.
What do you guys want to do? I had a great career going, right? And so, like, the opportunities were out there. But I took it to the family, man, and we did a lot of discussion, and we did a lot of praying, and it ended up being a pretty easy decision for everyone that that it was time. It was time to retire and take on a new adventure.
Gotcha. So what? How many years at the with the 2-4?
2-4 was 3 years too. Yeah.
Okay.
I got 2 years, and I kind of begged and pleaded for an extra year, and got granted the extra year. Was very grateful, and that extra year took me to 20. And so I kind of did the thank you so much for the extra year here.
Yeah.
I'm putting in my paperwork.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's kind of how that worked for us.
What a feather in your cap. And for a lot of you guys out there, and this is common knowledge out there, I mean, there's guys being interviewed from CAG, you know, or Delta. There's guys being interviewed, you know, from SEAL Team 6 and all that. Consider that unit to be the Air Force's Tier 1 level guys.
Yeah,
so you're
without
talking,
a doubt.
a lot of the guys I served with in the 2-3 eventually made it out that way. One in particular that actually lives here in Niceville that I'm hoping one day that I served with in the Army.
Yeah.
And yeah, he went Air Force before I did. I'm hoping to get an interview with him because he's a farmer now.
Nice.
Yeah, he's just
that's a
completely decompressed.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
You need that, man. You need that time away.
But definitely a hard charge. But what a feather in your cap to end it at that level.
Yeah.
That's
that was
pretty cool.
Another praise God moment for me, man. Yeah, there were several godsends along the way in my career. Looking back, man, I did everything and more that I wanted to do in the military. I'm just so grateful for the experiences that I had. I mean, it kind of molded and shaped me as a professional, and man, lifelong, just amazing experiences.
Right.
Very, very grateful. Very grateful.
All right. So, I'm sorry. Yeah.
we both knew where we were going.
Yeah. So obviously I meet you during that transitional part in life. I think you were just getting ready to punch like 90 days out or whatever, and so we meet at the Honor Foundation once again. Hashtag the Honor Foundation.
Definitely that.
THF.org, right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So or honor.org.
It is. It's honor.org.
Yeah.
That's it. Yep.
So
that's right.
For all you guys out there getting ready to separate or retire, honor.org. Check it out.
Best thing you can do.
Yeah. So obviously there's life after the military. So we're talking almost to the book.
Yeah.
Not quite. So,
We're close.
So what happens?
Yeah. So another godsend moment. Like I'm looking at opportunities. The one thing that I had said that I didn't want to do was go work at a law firm. Like I was like, I don't want to be a law firm guy. And then sure enough, you know, just like what the Honor Foundation will teach you and what you know, it's all about relationships and networking and cups of coffee, you know, with the right people. And I just randomly had a buddy of mine who had retired the year before reach out to me and say, hey, I don't know if you're interested in law firms, but there is a guy who is about to retire and looking to hand over his practice to someone else. And he's a retired Army guy. He spent 30 years in the Army, ended up having a fantastic law career afterwards. And he's at this firm, and he's just looking for the right guy or gal, right, to pass his practice on. You should give him a call. And so I said, well, you know, I'm not in a hurry, and I'm definitely not interested in a law firm, but I might as well talk to this guy. Ended up being like the coolest guy you could ever meet. You know, he was and not just in the Army, but he didn't spend his time in the Army as a JAG. He was an infantry guy. He was ended up working his way up to command. He actually commanded forces in Panama when we were in Panama.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm former infantry.
Yeah, man.
So yeah,
like,
11 Bravo. Hey,
awesome dude.
Nice.
Like, could not have been a cooler guy. And just to show you the type of like character and hard worker he was, he's at the Pentagon. He's coming up on 30 years. He's looking to retire. and he decides, I should go to law school, right?
Holy cow.
So while working an 06 position at the Pentagon, which is never easy, he goes and joins night school and spends 4 years getting his law degree from Georgetown University.
Wow.
And then retires, and the next day joins a law firm. So that's the kind of guy he is.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, super legit guy, and like salt of the earth. Could not be just a better human being. And we hit it off immediately. And the next thing I know, I find myself joining this law firm. And not only did I join the law firm, but they immediately asked if I would be interested in being a partner. And so
No kidding.
I retired and went straight to making partner at a law firm based out of DC. It's a nationwide law firm, Dunlap, Bennett, and Ludwig. Great firm. Very close ties to the military, veteran owned. Two of the named partners were former military.
Okay.
And just built this into a pretty darn large law firm. Influences all over the world, offices kind of nationwide. And they asked if I'd be interested in being a partner. And so I said, why not? And took over this guy's practice. And so that's where I'm at now.
Wow.
Yeah,
That
really
is
cool.
so cool.
Yeah, really cool.
Wait, took over the guy's practice?
Yeah. I mean, we spent some time.
Are you the top dog?
I mean, I
you're
wouldn't say
partner,
that I'm a
but
top
yeah,
dog.
okay.
I mean, like I do what I want to do. I'm very fortunate with the clients that I have, that I work with, and I'm not wanting for jobs. Like
Yeah,
it's
that's awesome.
But the cool thing about this firm, I can't speak enough praises on Dunlap, Bennett, and Ludwig. They really are like, if you're out there and you need an attorney for some reason, look us up. Dunlap, Bennett, and
what kind
Ludwig.
of law?
So I love the national defense space, right? That's kind of my bread and butter. And I found that there is a unique, very cool niche that fuses my prior contracting, knowledge with my experiences in the operational environment and my, national defense kind of bona fides. And his practice was really focused on U.S. export controls and international trade. And so I help companies primarily in the national defense space interface with the federal government in a lot of different ways. So
Okay.
I'm doing bid protests and government contract support, doing some national security law issues, and doing a lot of U.S. export controls, international trade, working with businesses, trying to move parts and services around the world.
Wow.
So, and again, primarily in the defense industry. So
Okay.
it's a super cool niche. It's exactly the kind of stuff that I wanted to be doing on the outside. So
Right.
really fortunate.
Dude, that is so
Yeah,
cool.
love
That
it.
is,
Love it.
yeah.
But the other cool thing about this firm is they are super supportive of people trying to pursue other interest areas, passion areas. And so one of the things that I had done during the last assignment when I was active duty was I started writing this book.
Okay.
And so by the time I retired, I knew I wanted to kind of slow roll the writing process because I was going to publish it after I got out of the military.
Right.
So I had some time, and so I started working it. But I retired, took on this partnership at the law firm, told them that I was interested in finishing this book and publishing this book, and they said, absolutely, run with it. And they've been super supportive. So in addition to practicing law and serving as the adjunct professor at Texas A&M, I've also been kind of wrapping up this book, man. And so it's published, it's out there, and check to the bucket list.
Dude, what aren't you doing?
No,
I'll
no.
tell you what. Okay, so the big culmination
Yeah.
here. So
Finally.
once again, on LinkedIn, seeing you had a book that was going to come out. It's like,
Yeah.
all right. So show us the book.
Here we are.
All right.
This is the book. So it is entitled Cynical: Overcoming America's New Mindset with 7 Principles of Hope and Humanity.
Okay.
Lots of iterations for that title, but that's the one that ended up sticking. So
why
yeah.
why the title Cynical?
Yeah. So here's the story, kind of going back to that last deployment that I had. It all started there. And essentially the story was, you know, and you've had countless experiences of your own, I'm sure, that are similar to mine. But, you know, I find myself on the other side of the world doing some really, really important work on behalf of the country, away from family and friends, you know, kind of watching America interacting and engaging with one another, kind of from the other side of the world. And what I saw was so influential to me. It was so impactful that it was like I made a note that I wanted to go back and I wanted to write this because, you know, you don't have a lot to do when you're deployed, right? The job is the mission, right? There's not a lot of downtime. And I found that the downtime that I had were in one of three ways, right? I could go to the gym, and I spent a lot of time in the gym. I go to the chapel, I spent a lot of time in the chapel. Or you had the TV, right? We did have some comms, and we had 4 channels that we could watch. We had a news channel, a movie channel, a sports channel, and the military channel. And the reality is nobody watches the military channel except for some funny commercials that come on every once in a while, right? The movies were hit or miss. Sports were a great way to feel reconnected with the good old United States of America. But, you know, your team wasn't always playing. So I found that, like, my source of connection, of motivation, of uplifting, right, was the news, right? The happenings of the day. What was being said and done back home while I was away kind of supporting my country. But what I found pretty quickly was that what I saw did not uplift, right?
No.
It did not support. It did not motivate. In fact, what I saw kind of as a deployed service member on the other side of the world was the reason why I wrote the book. And the bottom line is we are cynical. We are cynical people. Yeah. We use the term all the time, right? Oh, I'm just being cynical. Oh, maybe I'm being a little cynical about this. And it's kind of like an offhanded, flippant comment, right? But the reality is we don't understand what cynicism really is, right? As a mindset, what it can do, right? In terms of its destructive power. Right? So we don't know what we're saying when we say I'm just being cynical. And the reality is it is far worse than you could possibly imagine. And so I make the argument that our cynical mindset, the cynical mindset that America kind of has collectively largely adopted over the past several years, is one of the greatest threats facing the nation. I really believe that. And I think it has some incredibly destructive potential in all walks of life, in your home, in your workplace, and in your neighborhoods, both your local and your national neighborhood. The cynical mindset can just take over and destroy. And I think that's what it's doing in the nation right now. And so I expose in the book, Cynical, I expose what it means to really be cynical. And then, not like any good military, or human being, right, or professional, it's not just about talking about the problems, right, but we need some solutions. Yeah. Right? And so after I talk about the problem and kind of expose it for what it is, and spend some time even talking about how I think that the cynical mindset is a really powerful threat to our nation and our national security, both at home and abroad. And so I make all of these arguments. And then I offer solutions. I do a hard pivot. And I say, okay, what's it going to take to overcome the cynical mindset? And the bottom line is we need leaders in every aspect of our lives, in our homes, in our workplaces, and in our neighborhoods, both local and national neighborhoods. We need leaders to step up and adopt what I offer are 7 principles that will help us to begin to overcome the rise in cynicism that we're seeing so prevalent today.
Wow. That's, I think if we're being honest and we look at the way we view our neighbors, the way we view our politicians, the way we view people in authority in general, nobody's perfect. And there always needs to be a measure of grace. And some people, sometimes there's a legit reason to be cynical, but I think we've taken it so far over to one side that we're losing our humanity over it.
And that's it.
And that's our civility.
Yeah, and that's, to me, in fact, I'll just for the fun of it. Yeah. Early on, if I can do this while we're driving, Let me just read this one paragraph. Or
I
maybe
bet you're going to ask me to read it. I'm saying,
no, yeah, good luck with that, right?
No, please.
Let's wait till the police are like really close and then see if we can do that. So this kind of gives you a good idea of kind of where my heart is when I say we're cynical, right? And we can talk about what it means to be cynical in a second. But it boils down to this. So, as a deployed service member, what did I see? Bottom line, we are cynical. Massively cynical. Tragically cynical. Don't believe me? Try watching the news while serving in a combat environment. We have lost the ability to engage in intellectual, compassionate, or even logical debate if we're willing to engage at all. We treat one another as targets of attack, ignoring our humanity and choosing rather to lob insults and reiterate talking points designed to score the best possible soundbite. Respect has been replaced with resentment, demonstrated daily by amplified voices filling our minds with tired stereotypes and demagoguery. Eyes have been shut, ears closed, minds turned off. We treat opposing persons and viewpoints with loathing, hatred, or at a minimum, contemptuous distrust. Cynical. And so I go on to say, in short, America has become cynical and it's ruining our nation.
Wow.
So it's a little bit dramatic, but I really do mean it. I think that the cynical mindset, if we really recognized it for what it is and opened our eyes to it, we'd see that, man, it is all around us and it is destroying us. It is just eating us from the inside out.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I the way you articulated it, the way you framed it, I don't think it's theatrical. I think it's just the plain truth.
Yeah.
If we would just sit and stop, we'd find that we have more things in common with each other than against each other.
You've already read the book, didn't you? I'm kidding. No, I mean, I make the argument, man.
Yeah.
Like, we have lost the recognition, largely, that the person on the other side of the table that maybe you disagree with on a couple of different things is a human being, man. Made in the image of God, right?
Yeah, fellow image bearers.
There is a humanity that exists on the other side of an issue that we need to remember and tap into. And even that person that I might have really, really strong disagreements on certain issues, you know what? I bet you we agree on a whole lot of things. In fact, even the issues that we disagree on, I bet you we would agree on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
You know, so not only are we alike, but our end goal probably, oftentimes, is the exact same thing. We just go about it totally differently.
Right.
Right? So let's spend some time with humility and respect and honesty and some compassion. Let's get to know one another. Let's embrace each other as fellow human beings, right? Let's find those areas of commonality and let's start to figure out where we differ, right? And we can do it in a way that demonstrates respect and love for our fellow, citizens and our fellow human beings in a way that we're not demonstrating right now. And the biggest thing to me I get really passionate about this.
No, this is good. Keep going.
The biggest thing to me that is just absolutely tragic, as a dad, right? As a father, you're grandfather too, aren't you?
Yeah, I got 7 grandbabies.
So as a dad, as a father, as a grandfather, the reality that we are not only doing this to ourselves, but this is what we are teaching future generations.
Yeah.
Right? We have completely surrendered our role as leaders, right? As kind of future generators for the sake of our nation and for the sake of even our families, right? We have an absolute obligation to pave the path for future generations and show them what it looks like.
Right.
And all we have done is set them up for failure when it comes to understanding how to engage with human beings in whom you might disagree, right? We have just taught them and amplified for them what I call the cynical mindset. I'll give you a perfect example, right? So back when I was in DC, at the Pentagon, my son at the time was 12, 13 years old. He's in 7th grade. So he was 12 years old at the time. In the school district, there were certain discussion groups that you had to be a part of, like in social media, like kind of like chat rooms and things like that.
Uh-huh.
It was kind of it's DC, so it's already kind of highly political up there, right? But it was a particularly politicized period that we were in. And there was some election stuff going on. And these 7th grade kids started talking about candidates and the elections and things like that, and started kind of throwing some pretty aggressive thoughts out there. My son, who didn't necessarily disagree with where they were going, right? Where he disagreed was how they were getting there.
Right.
The logic that they were kind of throwing out was just really flawed, right? And they needed to rethink kind of their arguments. And so he very persuasively, very kind of neutral, he was very apolitical the way he threw it out there. But he just basically said, hey, help me to understand why you're kind of reaching this point from a logical standpoint. Man, that was all he needed to do, right? Because he did not demonstrate complete allegiance to everything that was being said. It was like rapid fire gunshots, ping, 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 comments from all of these different kids, and the words coming out of their mouth, an accusation to my 12-year-old son, who didn't make a statement, didn't even disagree with them, but merely asked the question, was so vehement. There was so much vitriol. I mean, we're talking like the worst language that I wouldn't want an adult to say,
right?
Let alone 12, 13-year-old kids directed at my son just for asking the question, right? And so the point, and I make this story in the book, the point of that to me that is so concerning is that is a learned behavior.
Yeah, it is.
Kids do not just do that on their own. They are emulating the types of conversations that we as adults are demonstrating every day for them on social media, on cable news channels, on even domestic channels, radio. I mean, you name it, right? The cynical mindset is so prevalent and all around us, all consuming at all times, that this is the world we're creating for them. And man, we can do better. We've got to do better. We have got to start taking ownership of this problem. So that's what the book's all about.
Dude, I'm excited.
Yeah, man.
And hopefully, I'd like for us to do a rehack on this, maybe do a part 2, and maybe talk some of the chapters.
Yeah.
I know you're busy, but let's see if we can get that on the calendar.
Yeah, let's book it.
Where can people reach you out there on the internet and all that?
Oh, yeah, that's great. Thank you. So I actually put together a website to kind of get this going.
Very good, by the way. It looked great.
Yeah, thank you. So if you want to check me out personally, go to www.aaronljackson.com. That's aaronljackson.com. So 2 A's, R-O-N, Jackson, L. AaronLJackson.com.
Gotcha. Where else?
Yeah.
Where else are you at?
Man, golly. I'm really not that great at social media right now. I'm not going to lie.
Dude.
I got the
It's
website.
charismatic. You have
I
a
got
book.
the website.
You gotta be.
Look me up on LinkedIn.
Okay, LinkedIn.
And I am just about to start my own JoePa
I
version.
saw that, dude. I saw that.
I am going to start a podcast. It's going to be within probably the next couple of weeks. I'm going to call it Non-Cynical or the Non-Cynical Nation. Which one do you like better, by the way?
So, okay, say it again.
Non-Cynical or the Non-Cynical Nation podcast. The bottom line is I'm wanting to demonstrate for us that we don't have to embrace this cynical mindset, right? We need to show what being non-cynical looks like. It sounds nonsensical even to say it, but it's not. It's just non-cynical, right? So that's the genesis. Look for the podcast. I like
non-cynical, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Roll with that one.
Non-cynical. It'll be out in the next couple of weeks, and I would love to have you guys listen in.
That would be cool. All right, guys. Once again, dude, I loved it.
It was fun. I know. So good.
Freaking knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, man.
Hey, everybody. So once again, thanks for tuning in to the JoePa podcast. You know the deal. This one will be on YouTube. Hopefully I can get it squared away, get it on Spotify and a couple of other places. But hey, leave some comments. I'm on Instagram, on the X. Not Twitter, X.
I'm not cringing at that. It's that I need to be on there too, and I'm
know,
not. I need to do these things.
I need to be able to hashtag you these things. And what else? Instagram. I'm terrible about regurgitating these. Anyway, hey, seriously, leave some comments. Be sure that you like the podcast. Support it. Give me thumbs up. Give me thumbs down. Let me know. Hey, dude, you're great. Dude, you suck. And he should be the host. I don't know. But yeah, give me some feedback, man. And love you guys. Thanks for following us. And once again, the book, show it again.
Yeah, Cynical.
Get yourself a copy.
Let's do it.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Here we go, guys. We'll see you later. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.